What's up, guys? Welcome back to Country Bunkers Trains. I tell you, we've got an exceptionally good one lined up for today, or at least I think we do. We've got a new train that's made its way here to the train room, and I am absolutely over the moon for it. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. I'm sure, like many of you here on the channel, I kind of have a compiled list of engines and equipment that I would love to someday pick up. Towards the top of my list is two engines in particular that I've kept an eye out for a number of years now. These are engines that are a little bit more on the rarer side. They are out there, but they don't come out of the woodwork quite that often. As I say, I do keep my eye out for them, but I don't really actively hunt them. Like I mentioned, they do come out of the woodwork once in a while, but when they do, I'm usually not in the market to purchase, or they're at a price point that I'm really not looking to spend, or they're entirely out of my budget completely, so I just walk away and pass. You can imagine my excitement and surprise when one of these engines quite literally fell out of the sky and into my lap this past weekend. You can understand why I'm so excited over it. Over the past couple of months, we've been getting a lot of new rolling stock here to the train room. Now, while the rolling stock is fun, to be honest with you, it's not quite the same high I get as getting a new engine. I really had the itch bad to get a new engine. I do have an engine on pre-order for this year, a pretty pricey engine at that. But to be honest, it's not quite near as fun to me as the old school way of going out, finding one, holding it in your hand, getting all excited about it, and then bringing it home the same day and being able to play with it. And that's what I was after. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been working on selling off a few items, as well as setting aside and saving a few bucks and planning on making a new purchase. Last Saturday, there was a train show over in DeLand. I didn't really have high hopes or high expectations, as train shows here in Florida really don't seem quite as spectacular as they appear up north. But I figured, what the hell? We'll head over there and see what's up and see if anything catches our eye. So that's what I was hoping and planning to do. Last Saturday, the missus and I, we got up early, shot over to the ATM, pulled out some greenbacks, and headed south to the show. Unfortunately, just as I kind of expected, it wasn't an overly spectacular show. It wasn't a bad show. If you're into HO scale stuff, this was actually a pretty good show for you. They had a lot of HO product. The highlight of the show was getting to see some friends, as well as meet a couple of the patrons of the channel here. I always enjoy getting to meet you guys, and that was definitely the highlight of the show for me. I did come across one engine at the show, but after mulling it over, decided it just wasn't the one for me, so I passed on it. We left the show empty-handed. Now, with the train show being over in DeLand, this put us about 20 to 30 minutes away from my good buddy Tony over at Roundhouse South Trains in Port Orange. And of course, I can't be that close without paying him a visit. So after the show, we headed his way. I kind of had hopes maybe we'd find something there, but I didn't have too high hopes, as not a whole lot of new products been coming in, and I've kind of seen everything that he has on the shelves at the moment. But I figured, again, what the hell? If I see something, I see something. I don't. So we went over to the Roundhouse and hung out with Tony. Again, another great time. Saw some people, got to talk with some people, and just enjoyed the day. We were there for many hours. I did come across an engine at the store that did catch my eye. But after mulling it over and discussing it with Tony, decided once again it just wasn't the one. I was a little bummed, but oh well. What made it a little bit worse, a friend picked up a new engine at the store, and I got to experience the excitement and joy of him leaving with his new acquisition, as well as people coming in from the show showing off their new toys and whatnot. Yeah, I was a little jealous. But again, it is what it is. Life will go on, absolutely. So a few hours had passed. It was getting towards the end of the day. Sabrina and I were hanging out at the front counter with Tony and Frank, just hanging out BSing, and a gentleman walked into the store. I would soon find out this gentleman's name was Doug. Doug walked in and came up to the counter and started talking with Tony. They were talking over their business and whatnot, but then I soon overheard Doug ask Tony if he still minded checking out an engine to possibly have serviced and maintenance, getting it ready to put it up for sale. Tony, trying to remember what engine it was, asked Doug which engine it was, and I heard Doug say what it was, and I immediately, there I am, I'm your Huckleberry, I'm in. Tony asked the gentleman, Doug, if he had it here with him, and as a matter of fact, he did. Even more interested now, right? So Doug went out to his car, and sure enough, he came back in with this magnificent piece. I almost hit the floor. We took the engine over to the layout to test it out, got it on the tracks. It did need a new speaker as well as a BCR installed, but hey, I was already sold, hook, line, and sinker. Doug did actually recognize me. He's been here on the channel before, and we got to talking. He offered this engine to me for a more than reasonable offer, and I'm absolutely stoked with it. Right after purchasing it, with a big grin, I looked over at Mike and Tony and told them I needed a new speaker installed and a BCR. And of course, they took care of me. And as you can see, here she is. And like I say, I still kind of tickled and can't believe that this thing's here on the layout. But anyway, enough already, right? What the hell did we get? I did post a quick little short teaser the other day, sounding off the whistle, to see if anybody could guess the engine. A few of you did guess correct. However, I am more than willing to bet it's not exactly what you're thinking it is or expecting it to be. What do you say we check it out? You guys ready? Check that out. That's right, guys. It's an MTH Premier Norfolk and Western J. But not just any J. It's an Unshrouded J that was only offered for 1 year. Isn't this thing spectacular? I'm telling you, I'm in love. It's absolutely gorgeous. You could almost think of this kind of like a modern-day post-war girls' train set. It was only offered for 1 year. It wasn't really all that popular and didn't sell that well, so it was never revisited or remade again. And we have one here. Oh, I'm tickled. I've mentioned before I'm not really the biggest rail fan or railroad history buff here on the channel, but I do get my interest piqued on certain engines here on the train room that I do enjoy looking up the history and finding out all about the engine itself. This engine, being one of the most popular U.S. steam engines ever built, I figured this thing is more than deserving of a quick note of history. Now, while the J's are famous for their beautiful streamlined appearance with their shrouding applied over the engine, there was a period in time where these engines were built and operated without this shrouding. The J's were built in 3 separate batches, the first batch being built between 1941 to 1942. 5 engines were built, cab numbers 600 through 604. The second batch was built in 1943. 6 engines were built, cab numbers 605 through 610. These engines, being built during the war, had material and wartime shortages to contend with, so these engines were built without their streamlined shrouding, and that's the model we have here, cab number 605. These engines were classified as J1s. The third batch was built in 1950, with 3 engines remaining to be built, cab numbers 611 through 613. Also in 1950, the second batch without their shrouding were pulled in and had their shrouding applied. Unfortunately, all but one of the J's has been lost to time. They have all been scrapped. However, one engine has escaped the cutting torches, and that is number 611, which has become quite famous in its own right. It has been restored twice and is still in operation in today. I do believe this year or possibly next year it will be pulled from service so it can go through its annual inspection, service, and rebuild if needed to ensure that it is still safe to operate. Again, like I say, I'm not really the big railroad history buff. However, there is a ton of great info out here on the web. Bunch of videos, resources, all kinds of cool stories on these engines in particular. If interested, I would highly suggest looking them up. Lots of cool stories. But anyway, what do you say we move on to the model itself? The MTH Premier Unshrouded J was advertised in the MTH 2001 Volume 2 catalog. It was delivered in August of 2001. This model sports a flywheel-equipped Pitman motor, die-cast metal boiler, tender, chassis, and truck sides, metal wheels and axles, a constant voltage headlight, engineer and fireman figures in the cab, metal handrails, decorative bell and whistle, operating firebox glow, as well as operating tender backup light. Has an illuminated cab interior, operating proto-smoke smoke system, which as you can see operates phenomenally. Typical MTH, great smoking engine. Has operating marker lights, remote-controlled proto-coupler on the rear of the tender, authentic paint scheme, Advertised as weighing 13 pounds, it measures 27 and a quarter inches long, comes with a minimum recommended curve of 054, which I would say is very correct. This is quite a beastly engine. It's pretty long. It is equipped with Proto Sound 2 with freight sounds announcements. The item number for this particular engine is 20-3058-1. I'm kind of surprised this was such an unpopular engine and didn't sell that well and only offered the one time. With the J being such a popular engine, you'd think this thing would sell like hotcakes. But I guess people want the fully dressed J, not the undressed J. But at the same time, that's why I love this engine. This is really such a unique bird here on the layout. You don't see these a whole lot, and that's why I love the hell out of it. It does make you wonder if MTH has held on to the molds for these and if they'll possibly revisit this one in the future. I kind of hope they do, and I kind of hope they don't, to be honest with you. Like I say, I love the uniqueness of it. I mean, hell, even the cat can't get enough of it in here. One thing to note on this particular engine, as I mentioned earlier, it did come from the factory with freight yard announcements. However, the sound file in this engine has been updated at some point. It now sports passenger station announcements, but I do think it's a great trade-off. The original whistle on this engine, from the few videos of original ones that I have seen, it wasn't the greatest sounding whistle for this engine. The new whistle on this new sound set is phenomenal. I was watching Sid over at Sid's Trains. He did a video on his, and this has the same whistle as his, and I absolutely love it. It sounds great. Now, there is one downside to this engine. Of course, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? But the one little issue with this engine, as I mentioned, it is Proto Sound 2. It is a 5-volt board system. The 5-volt boards are pretty known for going bad. It's a very common occurrence. The one thing I have noticed, though, with these 5 volts, my little bit of experience with them, it seems like the engines that have been used and run and loved, they seem to hold out quite a bit longer versus the engines that were originally purchased for collections or display. And then years later, somebody buys them and they try to run them. The boards like immediately explode and give out. The ones that have been used and loved on and have some runtime on them, they seem to last quite a bit longer. I have another 5-volt engine here in the collection that's still running strong today, as good as it was originally. And thankfully, and knock on wood, this engine is nice and healthy. It runs phenomenally. Hopefully we won't have to deal with that issue. But I am going to have to keep an eye out now. I am going to keep an eye out for a PS2 3-volt system to throw in this thing if needed. I might even consider doing a legacy upgrade or swap to this engine in the future if absolutely needed. And at the very least, at the last resort, we could always do an ERR swap to this engine. Like I say, that would kind of be the last resort. I really like the sound file in this engine that it currently has. But like I say, if ever needed, that's what we would look to do. But for now, this thing is running phenomenally. I've been running the wheels off of it this past week, and I'm in love with it. What do you guys say we take this puppy for a run? As I mentioned earlier, it has been converted over to passenger station announcements. Unfortunately, I do not have any N&W passenger cars to go along with it. Pretty usual. But it just so happens we have another N&W engine coming later this year, a Class A. And I've started gathering some rolling stock to get pulled around by that engine. Some N&W coal hoppers. We're turning into the N&W layout here, aren't we? I love it. I think it's awesome. So we're going to pull these coal hoppers behind the J, along with some other freight cars. I think it'll pull the look off just fine. Alright guys, as usual, we're going to be using the extended sound sequences throughout the video. Let's go ahead and fire her up.
Let's get a team. We're going to schedule a team. Drop off that goal. Grab a shovel and spread that coal. Check the level in the tinder, will ya?
Here's the bell. And here's the whistle. This whistle is fantastic. Listen to that. Let's go ahead and move her out.
train number 25, the Powhatan Arrow.
Welcome to Bluefield. Watch your step, please. Have a nice day. Thank you. Watch your step, please. Welcome aboard. Let me help you with your baggage. Thank you.
Now departing for Cincinnati on track 1, train number 25, the Powhatan Arrow.
Pardon me. Step right this way. Watch your step, please. Thank you. Order. All aboard. Jumbo set goal. 50. I gotta blow her down now. Clear? Clear.
Isn't that awesome? I think it is. Doug, if you're watching, I want to give you a huge thank you and a big salute to you. I'm absolutely tickled. You've definitely made my month, if not my year. I love it. It's found a great home, and it's going to be loved and cherished for quite a while. So once again, a big salute to you. Also want to give a big thank you and a big salute to Tony and Mike. Thanks for letting me hang out and get in the way and allow me the chance to come across this beauty. So again, a big salute to you guys. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the new MTH premiere, Unshrouded J. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. But anyways, guys, until next time, my name is Zach, and this is Country Bunkers Trains. Y'all take care. I'll see you the next go-around.